Think the food in your kitchen is safe? Well, some of those innocent-looking ingredients could be deadly. You'd never believe that foods you eat every day could turn on you in the worst way possible. It's not just the food you see in exotic restaurants or weird dishes. It could be sitting right on your countertop. Today, we're diving into 10 common foods that might be hiding a lethal secret. Whether it's toxins, bacteria, or just an overdose of certain nutrients, we'll uncover what you need to know to keep yourself safe. Don't worry, you won't have to toss everything out. But there are a few surprising risks hiding in plain sight. Stick around to find out which foods could be silently harming you and how to protect yourself. Let's start with potatoes. One of the most beloved foods on the planet, and yet they hold a secret that could actually be deadly. Potatoes are part of a family of plants called nightshades, which includes tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers. When potatoes are exposed to light, they start producing a chemical called solanine. This compound is a natural pesticide that helps the plant protect itself from pests and disease. But when humans ingest it in high enough doses, it can be toxic. Symptoms of solanine poisoning include nausea, headaches, dizziness, and in extreme cases, it can even be fatal. But don't panic yet. You don't need to stop eating potatoes altogether. You just need to be cautious about how they're stored and prepared. Potatoes should be kept in a cool, dark place, away from sunlight. And if you notice green spots or sprouts, you should definitely cut those areas away before cooking. When cooked properly, potatoes are perfectly safe to eat. It's just important to be mindful of how they're handled. Even though solanine is a natural defense for the plant, the amount that builds up in a potato is typically small. But over time, consistently consuming potatoes that have been improperly stored or prepared can lead to some serious health problems. Canned foods are a go-to for many busy people. They're affordable, last a long time, and offer convenience. But there's a hidden danger lurking inside those cans. Most canned food products are lined with a substance called bisphenol A, or BPA. This chemical is used to coat the inside of cans to prevent rusting and keep food fresh. However, studies have shown that BPA can leach into the food, especially when cans are exposed to heat or stored for long periods of time. BPA is known to be a hormone disruptor, and research has linked it to a variety of health issues, including reproductive problems, heart disease, and even cancer. In fact, some studies suggest that exposure to BPA may interfere with the body's ability to regulate insulin, which could contribute to the rise in diabetes cases. So, what can you do to minimize the risk? First off, opt for BPA-free cans whenever possible. Many manufacturers are moving towards safer alternatives, but you'll still want to check labels. If you're concerned about BPA exposure, you can also choose fresh or frozen foods as alternatives to canned goods. They're usually safer and, in many cases, just as convenient. Tuna is another food that many of us eat regularly without thinking twice about it. It's a great source of omega-3 fatty acids and is often recommended for its heart-healthy benefits. But here's the catch. Tuna, especially the larger varieties like albacore or bluefin, accumulates mercury in its tissues as it swims through the ocean. Mercury is a heavy metal, and over time it can build up in your body and cause serious health problems. Mercury poisoning can lead to memory problems, tremors, kidney failure, and damage to the nervous system. The worst part? Pregnant women and young children are particularly vulnerable to mercury's toxic effects. That's why many health experts recommend limiting your consumption of certain types of tuna, particularly the larger ones. To minimize your risk, stick to smaller species of tuna, such as skipjack, which have lower mercury levels. And try to limit tuna consumption to once or twice a week, rather than eating it daily. Next up, apple seeds. Now this one might sound a little extreme, but hear me out. Apple seeds contain a compound called amygdalin, which when metabolized by the body releases cyanide. Yes, the same toxic substance that's used in poison. But before you start fearing apples, it's important to know that you would need to eat a lot of apple seeds for it to be harmful. To put it into perspective, you'd have to consume about 200 apple seeds for it to be lethal. Most people don't intentionally eat apple seeds, but it's still something to be aware of. If you eat a few seeds by accident, you don't need to worry, but it's a good idea not to crush or chew them, as that releases the toxic cyanide. Luckily, the body can detoxify small amounts of cyanide, so it's not a major risk in normal consumption. but it's still something to keep in mind when enjoying apples. Rhubarb is another food that seems harmless enough, especially when it's baked into a sweet pie. But while the stalks are perfectly safe, the leaves of the rhubarb plant contain toxic compounds that can cause serious harm if ingested. The leaves contain oxalic acid and anthraquinone glycosides, which can cause nausea, difficulty breathing, seizures, and in extreme cases, even death. Fortunately, most people know better than to eat rhubarb leaves. But it's still a good idea to be aware of the danger, especially if you're foraging for rhubarb in the wild. The stalks, however, are delicious and nutritious, so there's no reason to be afraid of rhubarb altogether. Just make sure to toss the leaves and enjoy the edible part of the plant. Raw meat may seem like a tasty treat, especially when it comes to dishes like steak tartare or sushi. But here's the truth. Raw meat can harbor harmful bacteria and parasites that can lead to serious illness. Meat, especially ground beef and poultry, is a breeding ground for bacteria like E. coli, salmonella, and listeria. These bacteria can cause food poisoning, with symptoms ranging from nausea and vomiting to more serious conditions like kidney failure or death. While sushi and steak tartare can be safe when prepared with high-quality, properly handled meat, eating raw meat at home or from questionable sources is risky. Always make sure your meat is properly cooked to kill any harmful bacteria or parasites. Mushrooms are another food that can be both incredibly nutritious and potentially deadly. While many types of mushrooms are edible and healthy, there are some wild mushrooms that are highly toxic. The Amanita phalloides, or death cap mushroom, is one of the deadliest mushrooms in the world. It can cause severe liver and kidney failure and is responsible for most mushroom poisoning deaths. The tricky part is that some wild mushrooms look very similar to safe, edible varieties, and identifying the difference can be nearly impossible for the average person. If you're not an expert, avoid foraging for wild mushrooms altogether. To stay safe, only consume mushrooms that have been bought from a trusted source, like a grocery store or farmer's market. Nutmeg is a spice that we commonly add to our morning coffee or holiday baked goods. But did you know that in large doses, nutmeg can be dangerous? Nutmeg contains a compound called myristicin, which has psychoactive properties. When consumed in large amounts, nutmeg can cause hallucinations, nausea, and even death. Fortunately, you'd need to consume an enormous amount of nutmeg for it to be toxic. The small amounts we typically use in cooking are perfectly safe. But some people have tried to ingest large quantities of nutmeg to experience its hallucinatory effects, which is a dangerous and potentially deadly practice. Cassava is a root vegetable that's widely consumed in Africa, Asia, and South America. It's used in various forms from flour to tapioca and is a staple food in many parts of the world. But here's the thing. Cassava contains cyanogenic glycosides which can release cyanide if not processed correctly. Eating raw cassava or improperly prepared cassava can lead to cyanide poisoning. Luckily, cassava is typically processed in a way that removes the toxins, and it's perfectly safe to eat when cooked properly. Just make sure you're not eating raw or undercooked cassava, as that's where the danger lies. Hot dogs are a favorite snack, especially at barbecues or sporting events. But like many processed meats, hot dogs contain nitrates and nitrites, which are chemicals used to preserve the meat and enhance flavor. Unfortunately, these preservatives can break down in the body and form nitrosamines, which have been linked to cancer, particularly colorectal cancer. While eating a hot dog now and then isn't going to cause immediate harm, consuming them regularly can increase your risk of developing certain types of cancer. If you're a hot dog fan, try to limit your consumption and choose nitrate-free options whenever possible. Now that we've broken down these dangerous foods, the key takeaway is simple. Being aware of these risks can make all the difference. You don't need to completely avoid these foods, but understanding how to prepare them properly, store them correctly, and consume them in moderation will help you stay safe. Knowledge is power. The more informed you are, the better decisions you'll make for your health. Food can be both a source of joy and a potential danger, but knowing what to look out for will help you avoid serious health risks. The truth is, we all love to eat, but being aware of the dangers lurking in some common foods can keep you safe. So, keep those potatoes dark and cool, skip the raw meat, and maybe go for a fresh apple without the seeds. If this video helped you learn something new, Don't forget to subscribe for more tips on living a healthier, safer life.